What is up, survivors? Today, we're going to be talking about how to tame the Amargasaurus. Now, I've seen a lot of different traps, taming ideas, things like that floating around, and I think the majority of them are correct, and they're a good way to do things. I'm not saying that my way is better, but it does work. It seems to be working pretty easy so far. Let's get into it. So a couple things you're going to need with the Amargasaurus taming, especially the way that I'm going to do it. But in either case, these guys are either going to be found in really hot areas or really cold areas. And to initiate those tames, initiate the taming with them, you're going to need either Freya curry or Callian soup, depending on that certain biome that you're in. You're going to need something like exceptional kibble to start to tame off with these guys as well. Now, if you're doing this, we're going to do this two different ways. We're going to talk about how you would do this on foot and then how you would do it maybe with some mounts and other ideas as well. But predominantly, we like to do taming videos here with the bare bones of what you can do to actually tame these guys. And there is a way to tame them on foot, just with you and a gun and a few other things. Let's get this started. So I want to, first of all, I want to apologize for kind of dragging this on before we get into the actual taming, but I kind of want to give you guys some context to explain my reasoning for a few of these things. So the Amargasaurus essentially has to be hunted with. You have to get it to follow you around and do damage to certain animals in order for it to gain experience, and then eventually it will be tamed by you. The problem is it will only go after targets that are aggressive or territorial. And in the two more popular places of finding these guys, it can oftentimes be really frustrating. So first and foremost is right here out here in the ice biome. In the ice mountains, you'll find these guys. I don't like this area because it's way too random as what's going to come after you and when it's going to come after you. There could be T-Rexes out here. There could be quite a few alphas out here. There can be packs of wolves coming out here. A lot of things that do a lot of damage. Between the Uties and the Managarmers are probably the biggest problem because they can literally just drop out of the sky when you don't expect them. Top it all off, you're not too far away from the Wyvern Trench, so a stray Wyvern coming out of there can give you a bit of a hard time as well. It's really hard to keep track of these guys down here, and it can be a real pain, and there's too many outside interferences for me. So I tried it out here in the ice biome and I got super frustrated with it, and so I tried it on the volcano. On the volcano biome, I ended up with the same problem. There was way too many variables of really aggressive things just around all the time, and it was really hard to keep track of it. Team that up with the lava, the Amargasauruses are not smart enough to avoid it and will run through it and damage themselves. And then you have things like basilisks that are hidden in the ground and coming over them. You won't know it till the last minute, and there's no way a wild Amargasaurus is going to kill a basilisk that's reasonably high level. They have way too much health, and it's really hard to take them down. So again, also close to the Wyvern Trench, Magmasaurs. I've ruled this one out too because it was super frustrating. So where did I decide to do my Amargasaurus taming? I decided to do it out in the desert. There's a few places that these guys spawn out in the desert. They're not nearly as plentiful, but I gotta tell you, it's a lot more manageable hunting with these guys out here. We'll go over fairly quickly how to tame these guys on foot and what works best for me, but this particular area has been working for me really well. While I've had nothing but failed tame attempts over on the other side of the map, I've had nothing but successful tame attempts on this side of the map. So let's get into it. Alright, so one of the places that I tend to hunt these Amargasauruses down for taming is actually right on the borderlands of the sand dunes. What we're looking at is right here on the bottom of the map down here, right at the very end. I'll even pull up the coordinates roughly at 9161. That's essentially what we're looking at. So what you'll notice is there's always a couple of Amargasauruses out here, and then a few others up there in those rock cliffs right there. I think you can actually, no, it's cactus, but there's usually a couple more up there as well. Now, I've already talked about the reasoning of why I come down here and why I avoid the other places. It's a bit easier to actually get done. And what I mean by that is that it's a little easier to fight with these guys. Now, we've all talked about the different traps and we'll go over that, but first and foremost, I want to talk about taming these guys on foot. And if you're just doing it with you on foot, you're going to need some good guns. I have Mastercraft fabricated sniper rifle with me. I would suggest you get a lot of guns. I wouldn't take guns that do shotgun like blast damage like the shotguns, and I'll show you why now. So let's get into sort of taming this thing. Now, this one's a little bit invisible to me because I've already ate the Callian soup. In the hot areas, you're going to need Callian soup. In the cold areas, you need like the Freya curry, things that are going to boost your insulation in that environment, and that's what's making it allowing me to just walk up to this Amargasaurus and then sync temperature. I start to sync the temperature with it in keyboard C, but just whatever your normal open inventory use option is, it will start following me and hunting with me. Now the trick is that you just wander around and have this guy follow you and kill things that are near it. Now, it will only actively target things that are aggressive or territorial. So it's not going to go after like this jug bug or like a jerboa out here. But anything else essentially out here, it will go after. Snakes, centipedes, vultures, all that good stuff. Now, the reason why I'm saying to use a long-range gun is because I can peg them before the Amargasaurus can actually get to them and try fight them. This keeps the Amargasaurus from getting into a fight and actually taking any damage if I can kill the animals off quickly enough. As you can see, we already see it darting out there ahead of time, and it looks like it's going after something else now. It looks like it's going after a scorpion. But again, the reason why I say bring a long-range rifle is so that you can basically provide supporting fire for the Amargasaurus and tame it that way. But this one is going off the rails. Of course, it's not sticking to the plan. Usually I would walk it down that way, but it looks like it's found something over here to fight. Let's go over here and give it a hand. Oh, Troodon's wonderful. Oh, God. This is getting a little hectic out here. Now, wow, okay. You kill the Troodon. It's not gonna hurt my feelings. Whoa, dear. I took a straight shot to the face and nothing happened to him. All right, now he's back to following me again. When you can see, it's gonna go after things that are aggressive. What I would suggest is leading it a bit further out towards the edge of the sand dunes. If you get out to the edges of this, you're not going to get disrupted by sandworms, but there should be plenty enough targets for this thing to be fighting. Now, as it starts to take damage, if you have sweet vegetable cake, you can put that in your last slot and actually heal it as it starts to take damage as well. But right now, I'm kind of hoping I don't have to. But essentially, this is what we're doing. We're just walking down the edge of this and killing stuff for it before it can get mad to do it itself. As you can see right there, it's taking damage. It says it's losing taming effectiveness because it's taking damage. That's the trick out here. You really just want to kill these things before they can do a lot of damage to the Amargasaurus itself. It's a pretty straightforward process, right? You just sit here and follow it around. It's going to do all the fighting for you. And as you can see, if I had veggie cake, I could put it in that last slot. I forgot to bring veggie cake with me, so now I'm just out here on foot dealing with this. But at any rate, this is how we're doing this. We're at 19%. We're just going to keep walking around shooting stuff. Now, the reason why I don't like to use shotguns is because you'll notice when things come up to fight this guy, they come up like underneath of its neck to hit it. And if you shoot it, it'll hurt it as well. So I try to stay away from stuff like that. I think single shot weapons, preferably long range weapons, are going to be a lot easier because you're going to have a bit of a reach on them. It's going to help you get out and hit those opponents long before they come after you. And that's the idea, is to kill it before the Amargasaurus even gets to it, because anything that you kill, it works. It doesn't have to be the one doing the damage. You can totally do this on foot out here in the desert. It's really not as hard as I thought it was going to be. It can take some doing sometimes, and I definitely screwed up by not bringing veggie cake out here. But as you can see, I have the distance kind of figured out for a lot of this. And the nice thing too with using like a long range rifle here is I can sort of filter off the stuff that I don't want it to fight, right? So if I see Troodons like I saw earlier, if I got the jump on them or something I don't want it to go out and fight because it might try to drag it in a certain direction, I can use a rifle, a long neck rifle, or even an assault rifle to just reach out and hit it and get rid of it before any of that actually happens. So we got centipede out here. Oh, there we go. And I can feed it exceptional kibble again. Keep going. This is pretty straightforward tame. Just gonna run around, shoot some more stuff. And there we go. It is tamed. All we had to do is run around and kill some stuff. So pretty straightforward, pretty easy going with these guys. This is the best place, honestly, for me to do it. I've tried it in a bunch of different other locations, and honestly, this spot just works the best for me. If you just kind of skirt this and go down, you'll find enough animals that you can keep a distance from and kill pretty easily, provided if you have the right equipment. Now, we've talked about how to tame this on foot, which is predominantly what we try to do with any taming video, like to eliminate the need of other dinos and stuff like that. Solo taming on foot, this is honestly the best thing that's worked for me thus far. But with an animal specifically like this, I'd like to talk about another method that helps me out quite a lot, and we'll get into that one right now. All right, what I have found helpful for me, and this is one of the locations that I'll do this in predominantly, and that is here again, down here in the desert, right by the raised lake right here. Kind of sitting down here towards the middle, the lake that's actually displaying on the map down in the scorched earth area. What I'll do is just make a simple box with foundations in it with doorways going all the way up. Now, I've seen a lot of different other traps and some of those work, but honestly, I'd like to try to keep things as simple as I can for somebody like me. Hopefully this helps you guys too. But basically, let's say you don't, right? Let's say you have some other animals and you have options to pick the bait up or leave the, you know, if we don't want to do solo on foot trying to tame one of these guys. So what I would suggest doing is build a box like this, and really you could probably do this in any biome. I tend to do this more in the desert because the threats that are out here are a bit more manageable and easier to handle than over in the volcano and over in the ice. The ice tends to be a bit more unpredictable. But anyway, this is one of the spots that I normally use, and of course it's probably going to make a liar out of me. But this area back here is actually a spawn point for Amargasauruses. I don't see them here, but I did want to talk about it because I usually do see them back here. So what I'll do is I'll get them from here and lead them over to that trap eventually. The other area we can do this in is right over the mountain where we just found the previous one. This pathway coming down is predominantly where you'll see them as well. Let's go down this way so I can show you. Right down there, you see the two hanging out down here right by these pointed out rocks, and then a little bit further down is where we started the tame with the other one, and its mate is still sitting out there wandering around. So this general area is a pretty good area too, and like always, if they're too low level or you don't want to get involved with them, you can always just kill them off. Now down here I would make this pen somewhere out here ish, probably, if I was taming the ones out here, but if you're doing the one up by the lake, that's where I would put it, is right about here. Now what you would do, take a creature, an Argentavis, snow owl, wyvern, anything that can pick up a Daedon and fly it around. Now, Daedons can be found everywhere out here, and they're actually really good for trying to tame these guys. Now, I've definitely seen some videos where, you know, you drop one Daedon in and you heal it, and then you let it fight it, and you let it heal it, and you fight it, and you heal it, and you fight it. Honestly, I found it much easier for me, just for sake of argument, not to say my way is better, but it's easier for me, is just take that flyer and go pick up 6, 7, 8 Daedons, wild Daedons, and just drop them in this box. Just drop them in this box. They can't get out. They're stuck there, right? So once you've done that, you can go initiate the tame with the Amargasaurus. I don't know why I keep coming over here, because for whatever reason it's empty, and I kind of look stupid. Anyway, let's go back over this way. Anyway, so we have those Amargasauruses there. So we initiate the taming procedure with these Amargasauruses. We lead them down to the box that is covered in pigs, right? And from that point, you can sit and help, or you can just watch the Amargasaurus kill the pigs. It's a pretty straightforward process, and they'll get a lot of XP. They'll usually tame pretty quickly that way. So if you want to do the carry-all option, that's definitely a way to do it. If not, I would suggest coming over there to the desert and walking around with them. I think it's a lot easier. Once tamed, you'll need a saddle for these guys. This is the Amargasaurus saddle that can be made at a smithy at level 55. Will require Amargasaurus spikes, fiber hide, and metal. We'll talk about how to get the spikes very easily. You'll basically hold in E or bring up the radio menu on any Amargasaurus and you can retrieve the spikes. Now, once you retrieve the spike, you're going to be limited as to how long you can use it, right? So if you can see, there's a spoil timer on here of about 30 minutes. You can also use these to increase production in sap taps as well. But again, keep in mind, they have an expiration on them. But basically, you're going to want to keep doing this till you get enough to make the saddle. You go up to the smithy and you'll make it. Saddle's pretty cool. It's kind of like a one-off. You're like sitting on the side, which I kind of think is neat. That looks pretty good. Once tamed, these guys move actually pretty good. They're a little deceiving. Their turning radius is not that great. They don't turn that well, but their movement speed's kind of deceiving. Very much Diplodocus deceiving, right? You would think that this thing is not going to move as fast as it does, and it actually swims really well. Really well too. One of the other things to pay attention to is, wow, this thing has a lot of level ups. Well, just one actually. One of the things to pay attention to is the insulation that it's going to give you. It's going to give you a heavy insulation buff regardless of where you're at, and we can check that real quick just to show you what's going on. So right now my hypothermal is 609, my hyperthermal is 486. If I get off said Amargasaurus and make my way over here, we can see both of those going down pretty far. So these guys are going to help you survive in a cold area and a warm area really well. Now, if I get close to this guy, it doesn't go up. Notice that. It's only when I'm riding that. And I wanted to check that to see if maybe you could use something like this to hatch eggs, but it really only applies to you when you're actually riding them out. It has a couple of attacks. The basic attack will harvest like thatch off of trees and wood and berries and stuff for you, and will also do damage. It does like a neck swipe, and you can aim the camera angle to tell you where it's going to go, but then you can also kind of aim it backwards to do a tail wipe in case you have things coming up behind you. The hitbox on this thing is pretty big, so it's important to be able to do that, so when you get hit in the back by ops, things like that, you'll be able to handle your own, or at least be able to knock them back. They have the ability to shoot spikes, and you can change what kind of spikes it's going to shoot basically whenever you want. Level this dude up real quick. But basically, you're going to use your alternate fire button, will give you a crosshair, and you'll hold that in. So whatever your aim button is, whatever your alternate fire button is, you hold that in, and you'll get these crosshairs, and with the second, with your primary attack button, you'll be able to just launch these spikes out. These spikes will do a little bit of damage on impact, but specifically the one I'm using now is an armor-piercing one. What it does is just strip the armor off of it, and you'll end up doing bonus damage to things that are affected by this in those clouds. Using the C, it's a C attack on the keyboard. I'm not sure what it would be on controller, but you can actually cycle between the other different spikes as well. We have heat spikes that will do a burning damage. This poor little Lystra is about to eat it. And as you can see, fire damage to it as well. And then we can change it over to cold spikes as well. And fire off cold spikes. Just when you thought you were free. Does freezing damage as well. Seems to slow the target down a little bit better too in the cold area. With the cold spike anyway. The cold seems to slow him down and do a little bit of trickle damage, while the fire definitely seems to be doing like straight burn damage and pretty horrible. And as you can see, it even froze that little Lystra there too. So pretty useful mount, right? These AoE bombs are pretty amazing. And just to show you real quick, let's get this guy out in the water. It's not gonna win any swimming races against a lot of other creatures, but the swimming on this guy really isn't that bad when you think about it. Yeah, so you got yourself a berry harvester, a thatch farmer, a slight wood harvester with an AoE burst that also insulates you. This is a pretty awesome tame, right? You can buff this with a Yudi roar as well. You can use something like a friendly Yudi buff roar to even make this damage even higher. And it does seem to scale with the melee damage. The burn rate doesn't seem to, but the initial hit sometimes does seem to increase the melee, does seem to stack with the melee damage increase as well. You can breed these guys, they do lay eggs. That's pretty much it with the Amargasaurus. It's been a while since I've seen a creature update come out where I actually absolutely loved all of the different creatures, and I really like the unique taming methods of these guys. But that's about it, guys. That's pretty much it. That's the Amargasaurus taming in a nutshell. I really enjoy these guys. I had a lot of fun with them. Those and honestly all the creatures that got added with the Lost Island. One quick thing to mention before we go. Normally you would have a jump button. That jump button will actually enable an auto run, and not necessarily an auto run, but an auto straight run. And that means that regardless of which way I turn this guy, he's going to go in a straight line. It's actually really convenient when you want to fire and on the move at the same time, and then hitting jump again, you can disable it so you can turn like normal. That is something I forgot to mention. I figured I'd get into. But really what I really wanted to break this down into is I feel like this tame, as well as the other two of these animals, can be very easily overcomplicated as far as what needs to be done to tame them, and it doesn't necessarily need to be. It's just location and a little bit of patience. Now with this guy, what I would highly recommend is doing this out in the desert. Killing off the ones you don't want, come back when they respawn, and rinse repeat. I think it's a much more controlled environment, or as controlled as it's probably going to get. But as always, thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you on the next one.